Singapore has rolled out a $33 billion supplementary budget to further support the economy as it battles the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Heng Swee Keat calls it a landmark package and a necessary response to an unprecedented crisis. 100,000 job opportunities through jobs, traineeships and skills training. That's what the government is offering workers to the tune of $2 billion. The package aims to support the immediate needs of workers and improve their employability. All households with at least one Singaporean member will receive $100 in credit for their utility bills. And this is to thank Singaporeans for doing their part by staying home during the pandemic. And for a closer look, we're joined by Meng, CEO of the Singapore Business Federation right now. Mr. Ho, thank you for joining us this evening. So let's look at this Fortitude Budget.
Good evening.
Yeah, $33 billion, which, we know it focuses on providing timely support for our businesses, accelerating transformation and, supporting workers to secure these opportunities. So how strategic is this budget in helping businesses, in particular, the small and medium-sized enterprises, help them tide through this very unprecedented times that we're in right now?
Well, this latest Fortitude Budget is massive and very helpful. I think it's provided, necessary support for companies as they exit the circuit breaker period. I think particularly for industries that cannot restart straight away, like the food and beverage retail industry, higher support under the job support scheme was provided. I think that is helpful for the industry and also helpful for many of the SMEs in that sector. The enhanced rental support is also particularly useful, not only for these two sectors, but also for SMEs as well. I also noted that this particular budget, there was a shift away, not just on the 3C support for companies, but also support for companies to beat the unemployment curve, to retrain their workers, and to help with the retrenchment. So I see those measures as very important in the next phase of dealing with this crisis.
Well, DPM Heng announced that 100,000 job opportunities will be created. How significant is that in balancing out the skill gaps that some companies will be facing at the moment?
Some of the programs meet those skill gaps needs at the moment. If you poll the companies, the skill gaps are in technology, in innovation, in digitalization. So, for example, the SG traineeship, many of those measures attach new first-time job seekers to research institutions, high-tech startups. So I think this sort of directly benefit the skills gap of our industry going forward. But there's also labor market disruption. I think looking at it from the demand point of view, there will be industry that will be creating jobs, the healthcare industry. Certainly government is creating many jobs. So there will be demand for additional jobs from these sectors as well. And also on the supply side, in the labor side, the foreign labor will be harder and harder to come by. Companies will probably retrench them first, and also we can't get new foreign laborers. So Malaysians, for example, will go back to Malaysia and not work in Singapore. So there will be that sort of disruption, and Singaporeans can come in to fill some of these Malaysian jobs. I think some of them are actually good-paying jobs, good for Singaporeans as well. So there will be jobs created through these labor disruptions as well.
Well, speaking of those disruptions, a huge part of the budget is aimed at helping businesses overcome financial issues like overheads and wage costs. So how much will the newly announced measures actually help in tackling the long-term concerns of businesses here?
Well, wage cost is a big factor, and a lot of the support for our companies are to deal with wage costs, but all of them are temporary. Till the end of the year, they'll all be discontinued. So we are still faced and will face with high wage costs. So I think it's important for companies to realize that these are not something that's going to be long term. So in the long run, companies must continue to be productive. So the digitalization in measures in the budget, I think, is going to be very helpful. Rental support, I think rental is going to be high as well. I don't see rentals coming down because, we are still scarce in terms of property, but I think fairer sort of rental conditions between tenants and landlord is going to be a good outcome, but that not necessarily be lower cost. So companies have no choice to be more efficient, have to be more productive in the longer term.
Now, we're nearing the end of the 2-month circuit breaker, and businesses are expected to start reopening in phases very soon. How quickly must businesses kickstart their engines in order to reduce the fallout during this period, or should businesses be taking a more cautious approach?
I think if you give them a choice, they all want to start immediately tomorrow. They can't wait for the circuit breaker to be over. But I think businesses must restart safely. I think there's a lot of fear out there in terms of the impact of COVID-19. We do not know how it will hit us, how we will come back to reinfect us as well. So there's a lot of fear among employees, a lot of fear among customers as well. So I think very important for businesses to make sure that they put in place safe management measures. I think once that is in place, then I think businesses can restart, and I think you can restart in a responsible way, not just because the authorities' advisory say that you can restart. I think it's important for businesses to take a responsible position. They have to be ready first before they restart.
Exactly. So, ensuring compliance to new requirements and regulations. This will also bring about new set of challenges for sectors, especially like entertainment, F&B, and even retail, given the social nature of their businesses. How can companies in these sectors then tap on the new measures to balance this so-called new normal, and then at the same time work towards recovery to what it was like pre-COVID?
Yeah, I think in certain sectors, the new business models are clearer. So, for example, retail, for example, F&B. For retail, certainly it's important for you to get on to digitalization, look at e-commerce, develop more online marketplace. That allows you to not just tackle your domestic market, but also through e-commerce, look at the overseas market as well. So certain industry, F&B also quite clear, less in-dining, but more take-out business, collaboration with delivery platforms. So these are business models which are, I think, well supported by the digitalization measures in the budget. What is unclear is that there are some industry, aviation, for example, mass entertainment, sports, companies all around the world still playing around with the business model. We really can't quite settle exactly what this industry will look like post-COVID. So, one thing I thought was very interesting and probably worth doing is this National Innovations Challenge. That is, how can we collectively partner between industry and maybe the public agency to come up with a common solution in order to deal with COVID for that particular industry. I hope that through such partnership, many partners pulling their minds and brains together, we can have a good business model that we can scale, that we can call Singapore, and that we can replicate for all around the world. So I look forward to actually the implementation of the Innovation Challenge. I think there we will unearth, hidden gems for Singapore.
Indeed, exciting times ahead as well, and huge challenges as well. But always very good to speak to you. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Ho Meng Kit, the CEO of the Singapore Business Federation.